Greetings, brothers and sisters. Let me do this. I copied a couple of these. I got this. Did a screenshot of this yesterday, so I'm going to start off the video here. But I got a bunch of things to get to today, and I got an epic comment about heartfulness I got to share. But first, let's go to this Jake Tapper thing.
It sounds like I know you are, but what am I? What's next? I'm rubber and you're glue? Nana boo boo?
This Eminem, I've watched this about 3 or 4 times already. One of my friends sent it on Facebook. This look at this lifeless, robotic, unlikable, mechanican MNFer, right? Like, that's why I said Jake Tapper. It's really Jim Acosta. Because Jake Tapper with his somber, whining, droopy dog face and depressed affect, who's also on CNN, is somehow better and more likable than this guy. This guy used to be the White House correspondent, but now he has a show on the weekends. But let's watch this again. How does this guy have a job in front of people? Like, how do you have a job when you're not a good reporter? You're not a good journalist, right? You're not good at reporting the truth or doing investigative journalism, which is what your job is supposed to be. So if you're not that, then you should be likable. You should be a good actor. You should be a good entertainer. If you're not what you're supposed to be, and you're just somebody out there shilling for, the beast, for the mainstream news and the beast and the intelligence community, if you're out there trying to convince people to believe in you, then you should be likable. You should be, funny. You should have good energy. You should be charismatic. Not this lifeless, boring, angry and cynical in a weak way. I mean, just all the negatives he has, right? Like, he has all the negatives you wouldn't want in a public speaker.
It sounds like I know you are, but what am I?
I know you are, but what am I? What am I? Like, he's doing some, lifeless version of Captain Kirk doing one of his monologue. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder where you are. Like some kind of depressed, let's suck all the childhood fun out of this saying. He's like the vampire. And then he just goes deeper.
What's next? I'm rubber and you're glue?
What bounces off of me sticks to you?
Nana boo boo? Nana boo boo? Nana boo boo?
How can you suck this bad and be on the news? Like, just as a person. Like, how can you be this unlikable, this dead inside? I mean, look at this ghoul. This is like, look at this ghoulish MNFer. Nana boo boo? See, I was a kid once. Nana boo boo? Like, all right, let's move on to Jamie Lynn Spears. And so Jamie Lynn Spears cries to 3-year-old daughter after Britney drama. This family, is really messed up, in terms of the show. I think probably they're in on it. There's a difference between people who are consciously aware of playing a part or role that you see in this so-called show. There are people who are just being themselves and are being worked and handled and managed. They're not consciously aware of a show. And some of those people used to be. They used to be consciously aware of a show. But now they're not. And there's other people who are just being, they're being worked. And that's one of the more interesting things, trying to figure out if somebody's being worked or they're actually just playing a part or role. Of course, they all get invested in the role. That's what happens, Stockholm Syndrome. This happens to actors that play a part, and they can't differentiate between themselves and the role that they're playing. And so, there's that. But anyways, this is what Jamie Lynn Spears posted on her Instagram account.
Hey, Mom. It has to be okay, Mom. Oh, thank you, baby.
Okay, Mom. It has to be okay, Mom.
Oh, thank you, baby.
How manipulative is this? So it appears to be something to do with Brittany. Who knows, right? Because she doesn't give any context to it. But to use your kid as a pawn in this way and be crying and looking for victim consciousness and Brittany, Brittany victim is, the one who's being, her and her army of supporters, she's got all this victim consciousness, right? It's just so manipulative. It'll be okay, Mom. It has to be okay, Mom. Just weird. And her whole, like if you go to her page where she, you see here, this is her Instagram page, and she changed her profile picture to have one eye, right? One Illuminati eye. So who knows what kind of hidden messages. A lot of this I've been thinking about recently because of that Under the Silver Lake video. That, a lot of this has to do with secret messaging and communication between, members of the club. And so this is weird. Just like the kid's voice, and just leave your kids out of it. It's just manipulative, and, there's just something really wrong with this whole family. And it's just so odd, right? Everything about this whole family and their family drama, there they are. And just Instagram in general. Instagram, like everything's posed and everything, like these aren't organic pictures. Instagram is everybody's personal modeling portfolio. Like there's all these Instagram models out there. This is her original post. She deleted all the comments because she got harassed, right? By the Free Britney people. That's the other part to this thing. You have so many people in the truth community even here that comment that view Britney as a victim, right? And the Free Britney army that she has. And she turned them on her sister. And I know what happened here, right? She probably got thousands upon thousands of comments, some of them threatening. This is, you can say Britney's such a wonderful person, but again, her sister isn't the one who's in charge of the conservatorship. She has some kind of a beef with her sister or whatever. And she took it to Instagram, and that created Britney's army. She's got an army of, dopey supporters and, Britney conspiracy theorists that are out there who are all, would go to war for her. And so she targeted her sister, which is just it's misusing your audience, right? Like you have people that come to you and you can trigger them and set them on somebody, right? You can, have them turn on somebody on the internet, which is just not cool. Like I've talked about this, personally. It's a bad thing to do. You're betraying your audience in a sense. You're, manipulating them and using them in a way that isn't, it isn't cool. Katy Perry calls out Daddy Orlando Bloom over Instagram blunder. And I guess he posted a bunch of pictures. You forgot to tag me, Daddy. Is he your husband or your father? Like, it's a weird thing that people do, calling somebody they love, somebody who they're, intimate sexually with or married to, baby or mommy or daddy, right? Think about that. You're in a relationship with somebody. Many of you might do that because it's very common. Why would you call your significant other a baby or daddy or mommy, right? Who's your daddy? I don't know, my father? Like, certainly not you, right? Something that's just odd. Robot funded by U.S. military successfully runs 5K. Now, I wouldn't call this running. One, it's missing the upper portion of its body, so it's just legs and whatever that is. Doesn't have arms. I wouldn't call this successful. It's walking fast. I wouldn't call it running. It's definitely successful. But I've said this before. As soon as they have robots that can do what people do, robots are replacing people more and more, and I think they have, more technology than this, right? Anyways, it was able to walk pretty fast for 5 kilometers, right? And so it's getting closer and closer to that time when robots can do everything people do. And once that happens, it's game over. I mean, when they can replace human labor with machine labor, then that'll transform society, and probably not for the better. So I started talking about distorted reality yesterday, and I missed a few points, and I want to weave them into this narrative, and I got some heartfulness comments to get to. One of them, I guess, not really negative, but just kind of bizarre. And then some people who have used it and have benefited from it, right? So I was talking about this in my video yesterday that was about Selena Gomez, or the title was Selena Gomez is said that she sold her life to Disney at an early age, which is, in a way some sort of contract with the devil. Like when Katy Perry said that she sold her soul to the devil, right? And so, but anyways, in the end portion of the video, the narration portion of the video, I was talking about the distorted lens, the distorted reality in which we choose to see the world, and confirmation bias. And so there's a controversial topic that you can't talk about on YouTube that's dividing the country, right? Now, if you're pro this thing or you're anti this thing, you're going to believe the information that supports your point of view. This is confirmation bias. It happens all the time in the truth community, that people look and seek information that confirms what they believe to be the truth. And they look at other people who don't see the thing the same way they do as being stupid. And, I was briefly watching Bob Costas interview Charles Barkley. And Bob Costas was talking about how Charles Barkley, should be canceled, in a joking way, because they're like, whatever, allegedly friends or whatever it is. But Charles Barkley is outrageous, and he's always saying outrageous things. But he is so mainstream on all these issues. And then they were talking about how people are so stupid, right? People are dumb. And I'm like, Charles Barkley, once in a while he makes a valid point, or he has, something he says that's maybe somewhat interesting, but he's no rocket scientist. And so, most people think everyone else is dumb, even dumb people. That's how, society works. And people can't understand how you can't understand what they see in the world. And that's growing. Like the division in people's, warping of reality on both sides, where there's a huge schism, a gap. This is the year of the schism, the growing schism between the perception of reality, between the differing opinions on things. And there's divisive issues out there. And you see this with people in the truth community. And so if you see something that supports your point of view, you're more than likely going to believe it. And you're going to seek out that type of information. If you dislike Joe Biden, you're going to find clips of Joe Biden doing things and saying things that support your dislike of him. Where people who like Joe Biden won't find those things, right? Or they'll somehow blame other people or think they're doctored, or they just won't watch them, right? As soon as you send something like that to somebody, they'll tune it out and deny it. And so that's a huge problem in the truth community, because all this information was made up. That things that are existing narratives, things that people think are facts, were just made up for a variety of reasons and aren't true at all, or are exaggerated. Alex Jones did this, and, just hit the fear button and the panic button on issues that weren't, drop dead, knockout blow type of issues. Oh, the world's ending, right? The sky's falling, Chicken Little. There's so many Chicken Littles in the truth community. And of course, the mainstream story is just like a big lie and deception. So it's, for me, I don't believe anything anymore. Like, I have a light attitude about everything. And we'll see. Like, when real things start happening, we'll see. When you see the consequences for things. Because there's nothing that you can do to change things right now. There's nothing anybody can do to save the system. I've said it over and over again. And people, don't want to believe that. The majority of people, even in the truth community, have warped their reality, that they believe that there's some hope because they can't exist many of you hearing this can't get up and get out of bed every day, knowing that the system is, going to collapse soon in some epic way. It's like our system has terminal cancer, and it's just a matter of time. It's, could be 6 weeks, it could be 5 years, it could be 20 years, but it's just no longer this indestructible system that we can count on being there forever, right? When you are a young person, or you're in my age bracket and you're getting ready to retire, like I'm, so many years away from the average retirement age, and you think you have money and Social Security and a pension and things, and you realize because of inflation, or those things just get taken away from you. Social Security disappears, your pension gets taken away by, Wall Street collapsing, or your bank just grabbing it, or whatever it is. And then you have nothing, like you've worked your whole life, and you have nothing, and you're old, and you can't, you don't have the kind of resources. It's going to happen to so many people. It's just, right around the corner. People have trouble living with this idea, right? The older you get, the harder it is for you to adapt to something on the material level. You can, it's just your physical needs are just grow, like you're back to being a baby where you can't really function on your own. You see this now with all these elderly people in nursing homes and things because they don't have family members that can take care of them. You lose the ability to drive. You lose the ability to cook for your own food and things. It's just a deterioration in your ability to, do things, right? Not all people, old time people used to, just work until the day they died. They were still producing work. There's an old farmer that my family and I, when we first got cows years and years ago, and this guy sold us hay bales for $1 a bale. They were small bales of hay. And I went and helped him bring the hay in one time. He had, his name was Badgett. He had this great first name, which I forgot. But his wife and him were 90 years old. They were still growing sweet potatoes in a garden. They still had beef cows, and, they had this just great piece of land, that the place that was, all the farms were disappearing, and this family were waiting for him to die so they could sell it off to be like a development. And they were just out there chugging away, right, doing like farming stuff, and they were going to, die working, right? He used to have dairy cows and things. And so, there is that level of people who, as long as you have a purpose, see, that's what happens when people retire. I saw it with my dad. They just go downhill really fast because they don't have anything to do. They don't have any purpose. They don't have any work. So that's, a part of it. But in terms of the system collapsing right now, older people have much more difficulty adjusting to that, adjusting to a wholesale changes in the way that you exist, a whole systemic reboot or reset. And so it's difficult because you really can't conceive of that much change, especially as an older person, but as a younger person. You can't conceive of a world without the internet. You can't conceive of a world where you can't drive your car to go get food at grocery stores that no longer exist, right? Like it's hard to conceive of a world without electricity, for example, or television. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it's not going to be like it used to be, like it is now, where it's consistent. There'll just be places that have it, or, whatever it might be. Like, I don't know. I can't tell you exactly how this is all going to play out and, what the lifestyle is going to be. But as I've said so many times, we're 100% on this, dependent on a system that's always been fragile and isn't going to be there forever. And for most people, they just can't, even conceptualize this idea. They have to believe that, something's going to happen, like the end of a Disney movie, right? Where, some miracle's going to happen and some hero's going to swoop in and everything's going to be saved and it's going to be better. And, you have this with both the right and the left. They think if they pushed their point of view and agenda on everybody else, that somehow the system will be, will be elevated, right? The progressives, they think it's progress. They think this is evolution. They think when they push this agenda that's being forced on all of us that everything's going to be, a utopia. It's going to get even better. And the Make America Great Again people think the same thing, right? The Trumpers going back to the way things used to be when it was so great, and we can, we could have a renaissance. But neither one wants to confront the reality that no matter what's done, it isn't going to matter. Nothing can save the system. And so what everybody's looking at is the face of the system, the show, right? What we tune into in terms of the show, what we see as the mask, the external peripheral vision of the system. And we're not looking at the engine or the code, right? The computer code, like what you see on the internet, is the periphery, the face of the code. The code is what reality is. The code on this video, right? You're hearing my voice. It sounds like I'm talking to you, but I'm, talking to a microphone that's going into my computer. It's being, digitized, and then it turns into some computer code, and then it goes out on the internet. I upload it to the internet. And, it's in a way an illusion, right? What you're seeing here in terms of the pictures, pictures are a representation of something. It's not the actual thing. Our cameras and video cameras and things have gotten better. Our phones have, high definition video on them. Like, it's insane, right? But whatever we tape, whatever picture we have, whatever, whatever's on the video isn't the real thing. It's a representation of reality. And so what you have is many people can't conceive of the idea of the system collapsing. There's things that people have almost like it's like they're using it as leverage over God and reality. And this idea, if this thing happens, I'll collapse. I'll just shut off. I'll just, whatever it is, right? I'll just completely give up. I can't have this thing happen. This thing can't happen. There's lots of people who are meditating on that right now, which is probably delaying the process. Years ago when Whispers of the Brighter World came out from the Heartfulness system, and there was all these prophecies about cataclysmic changes that were called upheavals, and there was things in the Reality at Dawn book that was written was published in 1956 by Babaji in his My Vision, and I was going to this. We had no preceptor or trainer, Heartfulness trainer in the area, and so there was. This is in Virginia, and there was a number of Heartfulness trainers in Washington, D.C., and a couple in North Carolina who would drive up 2 or 3 hours and give group meditation because there's, an abundance of them. This is sort of the commitment of these volunteer trainers. One of the wonderful things about Heartfulness, that these guys who worked full-time jobs all week would drive up on Saturday night. Each one would take like a weekend during the month, so they'd all do it once a month. And they drive, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours to this place and give sittings because there's a number of people doing the meditation there. And there's a young kid from India who was at Virginia Tech. There was a student there, and he would sign out a room. Like, they had all these extra, conference rooms on the weekend. No, there was no classes. And we would have group meditation there. And the kid was really devoted, and he was into Heartfulness. And he was a scientist, right? He was studying to, as an engineer or something, bright, somebody who's going to have a successful financial, career ahead of him. And I was talking to him about some of these prophecies. He said, oh, no. The scientists and the people that run the world are way too smart to let the... So, you do all this work and you commit to the Heartfulness system, but you don't believe in the teachings. There's many people, especially the people in India, Indian people, who buy the books but never read them. I had someone who's going to a trainer write me and say, the trainer doesn't really seem to know a lot of the things that you seem to know. And I'm like, yeah, because they didn't read the books, right? Like, I've read all the books, like, I love the books. And, I don't read them as much as I used to because they put me in sort of a meditative state and I just drift away. I can't stay with it. So it's harder for me to read now. It comes and goes. But in terms of lots of people don't read the books or the literature, and they don't even really watch the videos that are now up in the content. So they don't understand the philosophy of the system, or they deny it, right? They just can't handle. They can't handle the idea that there are going to be upheavals. Like the word upheaval is used over and over again in these Whispers of the Brighter World messages. And so you have devoted people who believe in the system, but how much do they really believe in it? Because when me and my family started to take these things seriously and prepare for changes that were going to happen, this is, in the early 2000s, right? So this is years ago. There was all this, pushback. I didn't understand why. And the reason why was people couldn't conceive of this idea. And so they had to make me crazy, right? They had to make me, whatever it was, right? Extremist, whatever role that I had to play in their, imaginary world, their distorted reality, because what I was doing was upsetting to their equilibrium, and that's still the case for all of us here. What we're saying and doing is upsetting to the equilibrium of the so-called normies, right? The so-called, sheeple. They have to deny our reality, because our reality and their reality clash. I talked about this in terms of divorce, when your narration, your narrative, and your reality is so different than your significant others, and this growing gap, right? This is, again, I was talking about this with the Olympics. If you really want to see something as good, as positive, because you're looking forward to it, like, so many people are looking forward to something like the Avengers Endgame movies, right? They've watched all these Marvel movies, and it's building up to these two, long epic movies that did so well financially. But did the movie deliver for you? And that's the problem. People come with preconceived ideas. They have a prejudice that they want to enjoy them, but also they want to see things in a certain way. They want to see their vision of the Marvel universe. And when they started to feminize the Marvel universe, like, for example, that pissed people off. Like another example, there's a librarian in a town I used to live in years and years ago. And she went with her friends to the first Lord of the Rings movie. And they were like those LARP people, live action, they dress up and, things like that. And her friends dressed as Tom Bombadil and his wife, I forget his wife's name, who were left out of the movie. So they're sitting here in the movie in costumes, looking to see their favorite characters who were, cut for time. They were never, involved in the movie. And so they were predisposed to love the movie. But that shock of not seeing these characters that they expected to see, right? And so, like I was saying about the Olympics, I was always predisposed to like the Olympics. It's something that's, from my childhood, and I just always was happy about it. The summer is always kind of a good, I'm born in the summer. I'm kind of a summer person. And so I just always liked watching the Olympics, right? And it was, I'd give it the benefit of the doubt. This is, again, people's distorted reality. And so the veil is there, the veil of, a prejudice to either dislike something or like something, to, already pre-decide how you're going to feel about it. And that you're going to give things the benefit of the doubt, people and things, when they're in the positive, when you have a positive view of them. And think about so many, people in divorces, but also with friendships, or in terms of a mentor, who just thought the world of somebody, and they just chose to, view the person through these rose-colored love glasses, right? And everything the person did was great and brilliant, and then it becomes the opposite, that everything the person does irritates you, and you can't stand to be around them, and every habit and every idiosyncratic thing about their personality you end up disliking, and it's just the lens coming down, right? And again, you can have a distorted lens for the negative or the positive or something. And the Olympics, this past Olympics, with all of it, has just destroyed people's vision of the Olympics, right? I went to look at the medal count because my wife and I were talking. And we were like, wow, would they get 100 bronze medals? And in terms of the Olympic medal count, The United States got way more medals than anybody else. They got 113 and China got 88, right? So it was America won this Olympics significantly. And America got 39 gold medals, China 38. America got 41 silver, China 32, and 33 bronze. 33, an interesting number, right? In terms of getting 113 medals. But if you watch the way that the Olympics were being covered, you know, it appeared that America got all bronzes. Like they celebrated the bronze medals and the gold medals. I mean, I only saw a couple of gold medals being won by America. Just the way that they, you know, again, I didn't watch the whole thing and I fast forwarded and I was, you know, whatever. But just how they wrecked the Olympics just in terms of the coverage, because it looked like America limped in there and, you know, did a lot of quitting and a lot of drama and, you know, but it was probably one of the best Olympics in terms of, you know, medal count for America. Sometimes America doesn't even win the overall medal count often, and usually it's pretty close. And so, but the way that they covered the Olympics, the way the Olympics went down, the whole weird opening ceremony, the lifeless energy, and then if you saw the closing ceremony, they had like some elevator music band playing, a bunch of people jumping around and dancing, you know, in a pathetic, depressing way. And they were featuring like 3 jugglers, right? I mean, it just like was bizarre, you know, life sucking. And so this turned people against the Olympics. Many people tuned it out and just all the political aspects of the things, the sports and things like this. And so you take something that people had a favorable view of, and then it's turned, right? And certainly for Americans, the way that NBC edited the Olympics, it made it look like America had just, you know, America was all bronzed out, but that wasn't the reality of what happened there. And so this is just another way, you know, that perception is everything. And so for me, you know, I've had a couple instances in terms of when I started the Heartfulness meditation and I received the transmission, you know, I had never really bought into anything or believed in anything. Like there was things that, and I don't want, there's stories, I'm going to maybe talk about this in another video because I don't want to get off track here. I have a bunch of stories about how people were always recruiting me and wanting me to do things, right? For, you know, to join things or whatever it was. And, you know, I just didn't want to do it. But in terms of the Heartfulness meditation, I finally had something I believed in, but I wanted to participate in it, you know. I wanted to, you know, be a part of it in some way, right? The organization, and, you know, I was a preceptor for a while and things like that. And pretty much every time I was doing work for the system, it went in some sort of south way, you know, books that I, you know, wrote for the system, a children's book, and, you know, 2 children's books and things like this. And it just was always frustrating, difficult, dealing with other people. There's wonderful, saintly people. Like I can't even describe some of the great people that are in the system, but there are a lot of people that are very difficult in terms of their personalities and whatever it is. I don't work well with other people. Some of it's my fault, but, you know, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the percentage breakdown is, but it's been, you know, mostly negative and disappointing. And I have a negative, you know, like when people contacted me about the YouTube channel, it was just a negative experience, right? They didn't get it, right? They didn't appreciate it, whatever it might be. And I've just learned to live with that. A lot of disappointments. And now in the truth community, the more and more that I see it, I'm just disappointed by everything in the truth community. Most of it's the amount of bullshit that just exists there. Part of it's the behaviors, the QBs, and, you know, all of it. People thinking they know stuff they don't and going to war with people over their beliefs, right? You know, just they can't believe you believe something, and just the hostile and negative comments that I get on a daily basis that don't affect me like on a personal level, on an ego level, in terms of they're hurting my feelings or something. But the fact that they even wrote the comment, right? The fact that they believe things that are, you know, to me pretty much blatantly not proven and oftentimes blatantly false. And when I confront those things or say something, again, not personally to them, and then just the distorted reality, some kind of big explosion outside. Oh, it's thunder. we have like a big rock quarry thing. I don't know if they use dynamite or something. I don't know. Whatever. But in terms of my, assessment of the truth community and in terms of even my spiritual community, mostly it's just not positive, like at this point. Like I don't have, I had hopeful lens, right? I had a positive lens, certainly in the beginning, very enthusiastic, because I was very enthusiastic about finally, having my internal understanding and experience on a feeling level. Even since I was a kid, I knew there was something off about our civilization, our culture, all these things, our country, all of it. I just knew something was not right. And then in terms of opening up these narratives in the truth community, it was such a positive relief in my experience. And I thought, wow. And then just the awakening process, and certainly even more so when I started the Heartfulness system. But in some ways, they've both, in terms of the materiality, on a spiritual level, they've both been great, right? But certainly on an ego level, they haven't been. My enthusiasm isn't like it used to be. My enjoyment isn't like it used to be. But I've learned to cultivate gratitude. I've talked about this. Finding a way to be grateful for something. Looking at something, even if it's negative, as a way that somehow this is going to work out spiritually, right? In some way, this is going to, be positive for me spiritually, or whatever it might be. Searching for gratitude, finding a way to be grateful. That's why I end these videos with "and be grateful," because it's just something that's there. It's always there for people. It's always the highest possible internal narration and version of what you're experiencing. No matter how bad something is, experiencing it with gratitude and looking for a way to be grateful. Not looking for complaints, not looking for negativity, not looking for, oh, this isn't right. And having this idea that God has a plan, and this thing is somehow a part of that plan, and it's there to benefit you. And so, again, isn't the way I normally or naturally view things through my personality my whole life, but I have searched and looked for a way to be grateful. And with that in mind, I got a couple of comments here. The first one is just a question about the Heartfulness system. But then somebody writes a question that sort of sums up everything I'm feeling about the truth community and just people in general, right? The distorted reality and just how people are. So the first comment, I think here it is. Paul, I've tried several times to register for the yogic transmission on the Heartfulness app. But when I press register, it doesn't register. I'd love to become a member of the system and receive cleaning. And so the first part is that there's a chat available, and then there's the Heart Spots app. And I believe in the link in the description box, there's a video I made that's something like everything you need to know to start the Heartfulness system. It has links to all these things as well. I think that's linked in all my videos on both channels. So let me show you the app here. I already did a little video thing of this. Here's the official Heartfulness website, heartfulness.org. And I believe this is in the description box of all my videos, but also you can just search for it. And you see here there is a chat, right? There is a chat option right here. You just click on it. And I don't know, like I have never done the chat, so I don't know, like how long it takes for people to get back to you, or I don't know any of those things, right? But of course, there is the Heart Spots app, which you can search in your area and connect with a trainer as well. I've covered this in other videos, just showing this here briefly. But this is where, like I just put New York City. Oh, they've updated this. It's a better app. They have Hearts now as the app, and then they have a list of trainers that are there that you can connect to. I know it takes some time for some people. They've waited 3 weeks before someone got back to them. Again, it's a volunteer organization, but this is a way that you can also connect with people who can possibly answer your questions, not all the time. But so these are two options of, making contact with people. This is the chat here, that you click right here, and then finding and connecting to a trainer with the Hearts app. I have a link in my videos, I believe, to my video where I have links to all these things and I explain all them in a separate video. Maybe I should do an update on that at some point. But this is, some of the options of what you can do to connect with people to answer your questions, or if you're having problems with something like the app or something like that. So just to add to that, the Heartfulness system is a volunteer organization. Everybody who has a job, whether they're a trainer or the people on the chat or the people who are, building the websites and things like that, once in a while they hire a professional when, a professional is needed, like an architect. Well, oftentimes people will be architects in the system. They'll design the ashrams, right? I mean, people do this on their spare time. If you go to any of the gatherings in the ashram, all these people are volunteering, cooking food, sometimes cooking food all day long in the hot sun. I mean, it's just, the capacity for people to volunteer their time and energy. The masters of the system have basically given up their lives for the most part and are 100% about this work, right? I mean, they had their own careers and their own private lives and personal lives and family and things like this. But they devote more and more of their time and energy to this system. And a lot of the stuff they do is working on the world and people when nobody knows about it, right? In the middle of the night, giving sittings and transmitting to people. I'll talk about that more in just a bit. And so it's a volunteer organization, and sometimes things just don't run the way they're supposed to. I mean, it's just like the app doesn't. These apps are great, like a lot better than they would have been 10 years ago. I mean, everything in the Heartfulness system part of it, right? Because it wasn't, the Heartfulness part is new. It's more of an outreach program, right? It is like, to bring more people in. Before that it wasn't available. And so this is more of a user-friendly system. And the website and the apps are so much better. Like if you go back to the old Sajmark website and the bookstore website, you can see they're not good quality websites, not professionally done. And so all these other things are much better. But you got to be persistent, right? Like that's the thing about the system. Sometimes things almost block your way or access to it. You just got to learn to push through them, because it's not something where there's it's a hard sell. Sometimes you have to work to, avail yourself of the services. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. Like sometimes it's not, there's no red carpet rolled out for people. You have to, there's no hazing, but there are things you have to get over, humps you have to get over to avail yourself of the service. You have to really, work for it. It doesn't flow naturally. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes getting to a gathering is really difficult, but then you have this wonderful experience there. And so here's the other comment, and then I have a bunch of related comments to read. So oftentimes when I make a video, I talk about it. Almost as soon as I'm done with the video, I forget most of what's in there. It's helped me not be, negatively attached to what's going on in the world. And going back to what I was saying about looking for gratitude, I've gotten to the place where I just don't care, right, what people decide, to do with whatever they decide to believe in, whatever they decide to do. I don't get upset, when sheeple or whatever they are, want to believe what they want to believe. I don't care if, they get the what. I don't care if people end up doing the Heartfulness. Like I don't have an emotional stake in it. I'd like people to do it because I believe it's the solution based in my experience. But it's, I have mixed feelings about everything, right? And some part of me just like, I hope they just do a clean sweep of the human race and move on to the dolphins or, like some part of me, like not all of me, but some part of me sees some merit into just giving up, right? Not me giving up, God giving up on human beings. Like I can see that's there's an argument there. I'm not saying it's my belief, but neither is my belief that human beings are going to step up and do the right thing. They may. I'm hopeful they will, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. Like if they don't choose the higher, which is being offered right now. This is a choice point for humanity. And the future of our species, earthbound human beings, is, in play right now, right? Like there's a choice coming up collectively and individually. And, if people don't rise up to the higher, then there'll be, a re-strategizing. There'll be a repopulation of this planet. And the current population, human beings, will disappear. It's not, the first time that's happened on a universal basis where a higher developed group of people or, species or race has gone in the wrong direction, overused their freedom of choice. And again, this is an experimental planet, and we're an experimental species. And so what happens with experiments that go awry, right? They get wiped out and they're cataloged and like, oh, let's not do that again, And so, that's in play right now. That's a possibility of what could happen here. And I have all the hope in the world that people will choose the right thing. I mean, not in the way of having hopium, but I won't be surprised if they don't. But anyways, in terms of this video, this comment, Jojo Magoo at it with kids, Brittany fakery, Corey Bush loses it. In the end of the video, I talk about the heartfulness system, right? And that the reason I've been talking about it more is, number one, we're at a Hail Mary point. Like it's, getting desperate out there. Things are going south quickly. And I believe that the heartfulness system, from my own experience, is a solution that God's given for this particular problem that we're having now. And so because of my experience and belief and just, how the heartfulness system has changed me for the better, and I've seen change other people, my brother, for example, but many other people, and, help them to rise up to a higher level of consciousness, a much higher level, even if it's not the highest, they're moving in the right direction. And so, I believe in the system because of my experience with it. And I can see that, in terms of the teachings and all the things that are happening now, that it's getting reals, and this is the solution. That's why I talk about it. But in terms of people doing it or not, I'm not invested in that, right? I just, I like it when people benefit. That makes me feel good, makes me more hopeful for humanity. When people do it and they experience good things and they feel the transmission, they change. That's all great. I'm not, it's a positive, but I'm not emotionally invested in it, and take it or leave it, right? My job is to talk about it in the best possible way I can, to express what it's done for me and what I think it is. But what you think it is, or whether you try it or not, that's your experience. And I'm across the board, like I'm just okay with everything, right? It's not, when things start happening, and, I'll enjoy watching everything and, seeing how this plays out. The resolution of this epic we're in. Right now we're in the beginning part of the epic. At some point there'll be the climax, and then there'll be the resolution. And I may or may not be alive for it, but I'll certainly observe it from one place or another, right? I'll be somewhere observing this, and I'll as a soul, as a personality, I'll be interested in this moving forward. And so up into the point that I die, I'm really interested to see how this plays out, right? Aren't you? This is much more interesting than the beginning part of my life when nothing happened. But anyways, I said this thing about, I'm not invested, and this is why I'm talking about it. And this person says, I will never do your heartfulness BS ever. I don't care how many times you say how much it changed your life. And, I thought about this quite a bit, because what did this person hear that I didn't say anything like that? Like, do you think that I personally had a stake in you as an individual? And this is, why would you even write that comment? Like when I said in the video that you're referencing that these are the reasons I'm talking about, and it's up to you. It's your decision. And so why would you write that? Like, why would you think that was an appropriate response? And so much of the truth community is like that people, watching a video, and they take the video personally, like it's directed personally at them. Like I made the video just for them. And like I was hoping that this person did Heartfulness. Based on the comment, I mean, I don't put any of my will force behind it, but I'd rather they not. You understand this? I don't use my will force to block them from doing it or, pray for it or, do anything to prevent people from doing Heartfulness because it's free and available to everybody. And it's not my thing, but I don't want anything to do with this person. I'd rather they not watch my videos either. I can't stop them from watching them. But the person, why are you watching my videos then? Like there's so much here. Like in that comment, that person's completely triggered. Like I'm trying to force them to do Heartfulness, and they could stop watching my videos at any point. But what they don't understand is that so much of what I present here is all of it to one extent or another has Heartfulness energy in it, Heartfulness consciousness in it, right? Heartfulness teachings in it. So by watching this video, you are absorbing the energy. And many people come to my YouTube channel to get the Heartfulness energy. And when I say, hey, you could get a purer version, an unadulterated version of this energy, the transmission, because I'm not giving sittings here. I'm not transmitting, whatever flows through me flows through me. I'm not controlling it. I'm not, activating it or blocking it. I'm not a trainer in the system. But the energy comes through me because I do the system myself. And so I get, dosed with this transmission. And, it's in my voice. It's in my, the energy, the whatever's going on in this video. People can feel it. But you could get an even, a better dose of the energy, like a real unadulterated, purest form of the energy in the sittings, in the transmission itself, if you try the Heartfulness. And many of you come to this YouTube channel to feel the energy and to, you get put into a certain state that makes you feel better. But you could get the, again, it's completely up to you. But whether you do the Heartfulness meditation or not, the transmission has been going on for a number of years. In the 1940s, Babaji, the second master of the system, transmitted across the world. And when there's one of these gatherings, or even when people give these sittings, the transmission goes out. It's, it's not selective. You decide whether you tune into it or not on a spiritual level by, agreeing to meditate. But many people are receiving the transmission and are actively connected to the system with no consciousness that they are. They have been being transmitted to for a number of years. After I started the system, a couple years after, I realized, I traced my steps in the years leading up, that I was being prepared to start the system. I was already in contact with the system with no knowledge of it. That was being cleaned out. I was going through cleaning and being prepared for my initial sittings years ahead of time. But in terms of the transmission, Babaji started to transmit to the world. This is where the hippie movement started and people started to seek spirituality in the West, in Europe, in America. And he transmitted to people all over the world. And whoever was receptive to it picked up on it. And they ended up traveling to India and meeting him. Or when he traveled, or in the future when Master Charji traveled, they would meet them or something like this. They'd hear about the Heartfulness system some way or another. There was no websites. There was no official way to find the system other than people would put up flyers, like at some, health food store or something, or you'd see, there was, just word of mouth. There was one guy, he used to, I think, work in like military intelligence or something. And he's a much different person than the majority of the sort of liberal new age people that end up doing Heartfulness, right? A lot of sort of hippie people that do Heartfulness. But he had been keeping a diary for years, way back before he even did the Heartfulness system. And he realized one day that he was reading about Babaji coming to Cleveland, America, and visiting a library, like going to a library with some of the practitioners. And he realized he was in the library that day because he went back and found his journal entry, his diary entry. And he was in the library that same day, but didn't even know, right? He didn't see Babaji, he didn't see Master Charji who was with him. He didn't meet any of these people. And then years later, he started the Heartfulness system. And so the energy is out there everywhere. It is an opportunity. The transmission, people are picking up on it in one way or another. You know, in the Heartfulness system, there's individual sittings and there's a group meditation. Group meditation is usually on Sunday. It's a set time, or it's for special, sittings and gatherings. But you can get an individual sitting now with the app. And of course you can used to be able to go get individual sittings at people's houses. I don't know how much that's going on now with all the COVID stuff. But if you were giving somebody an individual sitting at, say, an ashram in India, you would start giving people a sitting, or the preceptor, if, whoever it was. There might be one or two people getting an individual sitting, and then people would just sit and join, right? So you'd be sitting there. They have these like little gazebos and things, and, you'd find a couple of chairs somewhere. There's places to give individual sittings, and other people would just come in and sit. They would join in the middle, and you couldn't willfully stop them from receiving the transmission. You couldn't do something so they wouldn't receive it. It's energy, divine energy, loving energy, and it's pouring out of you as a trainer, pouring through you, right? And you can't, say, no, I don't want these people receiving it. It just goes. Anybody who has an open heart to it, at any moment, it's flowing all the time. That's the difference of the Heartfulness system and any other spiritual movement. This energy, this pranahuti that's given, is flowing all the time. It's available. You can sit at any time and experience a transmission, whether you're getting a sitting or not. There was somebody I used to talk to who was he's a preceptor now, but he had so many, had a bunch of negative experience with these trainers and preceptors, and he had a bad attitude about it. And there was no trainer in his city for a certain Sunday where they were having group meditation, and there's two other people that wanted to meditate. Usually there was a bigger group. Maybe there was a gathering and all the trainers went to India or something, right? And he sat, the three of them sat without a preceptor, and they immediately went into a deep state of samadhi. It was an overwhelming, powerful sitting. And he realized, that the trainers and preceptors weren't necessarily necessary, right? They were necessary in one way, but not necessary in another. And so, because the transmission's always flowing, it's just there for people to experience. And when one of these sittings is given, it's just flowing out to humanity, and people either pick up on it or they don't. People have become much more sensitive to it than in the past, right? In the past, when I was a trainer, just not that many people could feel the transmission. You would start so many people, and they just wouldn't feel it. Now people are much more sensitive, and it used to take a while before most people felt something. And now, they feel it in the first sitting on the internet. It's not even a face-to-face sitting, which are, better in some ways than doing them long distance on the internet. Not that the transmission is any weaker, but it's easier for people to experience it when it's a face-to-face sitting. When you go to the gatherings physically, they're just better, the sittings. Your experience of them are better, but the transmission is the same. It's just people's ability to connect to it. And so it's just a choice of whether people are connecting to it or not. And again, there's many people that don't know the idea of heartfulness. They don't know about the system. They don't know about the master of the system. They don't know anything about it, but they meditate and they feel the transmission, and they're doing the practice without knowing what it is, right? And that's going to be what happens in the future, even more so. So this person who is, watching my videos and experiencing the efficacy of the heartfulness system through my insights, through my perception of reality, through the lens in which I view the world that's embedded in all of these videos, through the energy that's there, the transmission and whatever's going on in terms of the connection I have with the heartfulness system. Everybody who's watching these videos is engaging in that just by watching the videos. And so, methinks you protest too much. You're fighting against something you've already chosen, on some level, to engage in. By keep on watching these videos, you're choosing to connect with this energy and this, these ideas and philosophy and this movement, because it's so much a part of what I do here. Even if I'm not talking about the heartfulness system, it's a part of the way I view the world. It's, it's what I've been created by the heartfulness system, what I've been made into. And so whatever's in these videos is linked to the system, and you're choosing to link to that, right? And so, methinks you protest too much. So I just went, I've been talking a while, and I went to make some throat coat tea, and I put turmeric ginger packet in there. Something I take, just and I don't like making teas, but when I've been talking for a long time, I'm supposed to make sure that I consistently drink. But anyways, I went out and we have a new set of chicks. We had a group of chicks that were put outside, 12 of them. And there was a couple of raccoons, baby ones, that squeezed through a really small rectangle of wire, right? Basically chicken wire. We couldn't believe that they squeezed through it. But we got camera footage. We had those cameras we put out there. We saw them squeeze through it. And they ate 6 of our chicks, so we got a new set of chicks, and Tulsi loves them, our one puppy. So anyways, I went out there, and they were about to jump off, and Tulsi was staring at them, and I just realized I forgot a couple things that I wanted to say. So before I get to the other comments, and, I had a sore throat, pain in my throat that was different than a sore throat. I didn't have trouble talking for like 2 years before this YouTube channel really took off. Like it was being reworked in some way. My voice on a spiritual level. This is in India, partially in India. But I had just pain in my throat and things. And once in a while, I still get sore throats like that. And usually after I get the sore throat, my videos just get better. Like there's a process where my videos will go to a whole new level and the energy will be more refined. And I started to notice this when I would rewatch, especially these voiceover portions, because I'm talking in the voiceover and I'm not, reading things. I'm not doing all the things that I would do if I'm doing a screen grab with ScreenFlow, this app for Apple to, I do the screen part, the beginning part of this video. The energy is diluted more because my consciousness is less, I'm doing other things, right? And I make a lot more mistakes in my speech because, I'm multitasking. But when I do these specific voiceovers, the energy that's there, I would go into a state of meditation or fall asleep when I listen back to these things, right? I have to fight against it. And so, I realized there was this energy in it. So this is a couple of years, 3-4 years ago. And, that's a part of what you're experiencing here. And there's, work that was done, spiritual work. I mean, I've had a sore throat now for about 3 or 4 months. It's just getting better. I'm doing something now that's, helping me to recover fully. I mean, I'm feeling great. Like I've been, better and better ever since the COVID thing, a couple, 14 months ago or so. But anyways, the energy's there. People experience and feel it. And so, like I said, when people protest about this or, say whatever it is, they're choosing it, right? Their egos can't, acquiesce to it, right? But they're choosing to come back here. I mean, people complain about me and complain about my beliefs and ideas. Well, then why are you still watching the video, MNFer, right? Like, go somewhere else. Like, what's keeping you here? Instead of, lurking there with a bad attitude, why don't you figure out why you keep on coming back? Because, I know it to be the heartfulness system. People that feel personal attachment to me, feel loving energy to me or whatever it is because of the system, right? There's the idea of the master of the system, but the master of the system doesn't call themselves the master. And so that's what people don't understand about the heartfulness system. It's not you're a slave and they're the master, that you have a master inside of you. It is your soul's version of you, the version of you that God wants you to evolve into, that you have a perfect, not perfect in the sense of perfect, but the best, perfect in the sense of the best version of yourself is what's called the master in the heartfulness system. And so it isn't like there's one master and a bunch of slaves in the heartfulness system. There is a person who has reached that level of mastery, and they're still moving forward on a spiritual level even after that, because they've mastered this level, the earth level. Let's look at this as a video game. The earth level is a level, and then you graduate to an etheric level, right? And so then you move forward from there. But the masters of the system have mastered, this level of existence, and very few people have done that. And they transmit back from that source, from where they are, in terms of their accomplishments spiritually, so that you can do the same thing, that it can pull out the master within you, the best version of yourself, right? And some part of you wants that to happen. That's why you're here and watching these videos. The people that come and stay are the people that want that, whether their egos allows them to, agree to it or try it or, go along with it. Some part of you is compelled to be here and, eventually maybe to do the system. I don't know. Again, I don't care, right? Like I just have, thrown up my hands and said, whatever, like, let's just let it happen. I'm living the just let it happen idea. But so something interesting happened. So, I was going to include this, I was going to do this last night and make a video about what I'm talking about here, the heartfulness part last night, because a comment came in yesterday, but I got tired and I just didn't feel up to it. And so I also wanted to include, because I realized after the comment came in and I read it and I responded to the person about them having trouble with the app, that I should make a video about that, right? So that's where the idea came from. But I didn't do a screenshot of the comment, and so I was like, I got to find that comment. And so there is a way to search for comments, search through the comments that YouTube provides. I mean, there's a lot of great aspects to the YouTube software that people, people complain about YouTube, but I mean, there's lots of things that work well with YouTube. But anyways, so I searched the term heartfulness, and a number of comments came in that were, positive comments of people who are trying or who have been doing the heartfulness that I didn't even, I read the comments, but they didn't register to me. But seeing them all there at once, I thought I would read those comments. And then when I went to my Pockets of the Future Facebook page, I got a message from someone who just found my channel and was, I think, going through something. I'm not going to read the message because it's a personal message, but the person basically said they tried the heartfulness system this weekend, so I guess, day or two ago, and they had an incredible experience. And so, I get all these positive experiences that I don't usually share with people, but I get, so many comments, probably 1,000 or so more comments from people who have benefited from the heartfulness system that have heard about it through this YouTube channel. So I'm just going to read these comments in the order that they appear, and there's many more I could just keep on reading that have this in them, and they're mostly positive. Have been watching this channel for approximately 5 years, and I can attest that not once did Paul try to sell heartfulness. He always maintained the system has worked for him and for others, and if others wanted to try it, it was their choice alone, and that he does not benefit whatsoever if people begin the heartfulness practice. He always talks about his own experience in regard to heartfulness. My opinion is everyone, atheist, Christian, Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, agnostic, nihilist, etc., should try the heartfulness for 3 months with an open mind and see if they benefit. Try it as an experiment and draw your own conclusion. Best wishes to all. I believe this person has been doing the heartfulness system. The 3 month is the recommended. Like that's always been, try it for 3 months and see if you, and make notes and just observe your condition and find a way to evaluate it. And Daji Kamlesh Patel has said over and over again, try the scientific method, try to meditate without heartfulness and then with it, and see if there's a difference, right? You're adding an element, you're adding a variable, which is the heartfulness system, and see if meditating with and without the heartfulness system, if there's a difference, and if it benefits you. Like you do it as a scientific experiment. And this person writes, I love when you share your experience, strength, and elation in and with practicing Heartfulness system. Paul, I just started Heartfulness in the past April 2021 after my son turned me on to listening to your YouTube channel and heard you speak about Heartfulness. I called and got a trainer right away and have never been so grateful and content with my heart and my life as I am today. Please keep sharing and thank you. So these are just, I don't know if these must be new comments that I haven't read yet. So those two are new because I didn't heart them or anything. Hey, Paul, I greatly appreciate your experience with Heartfulness. You've encouraged me to give it a shot. I'm a Christian and had no clue how to pray until I learned the silent prayer which Jesse Lee Patterson promotes. JP wouldn't call it meditation, but in my experience, it's similar to the meditation. Heartfulness takes it to another level, and the way you describe Jesus is spot on. So many Christians worship Christ and forget about the Father God. I think the way to look at it is I'm a follower of Christ, not a worshiper. Your comment videos are helpful too. When I was a QB and Trump fan, and you said things that angered me, but then I realized, no, I'm the asshole. Keep crushing, Paul. God bless you and your family. The one thing about this is, in the Heartfulness system, Babaji intercommuned with Jesus, who blessed the system and has been a part of it in one way or another, just like, other higher developed souls. And I'm not going to get into that here, but people don't realize that it is being backed by religious figures that have, seen this as something that can help humanity evolve past their current, state of condition. So here is another comment. Immediately the title sells me. This is my Selena Gomez. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm very grateful for your content and the way you continue to lead me to God. Heartfulness transmission sets it apart from anything that you have tried. It will change your mind and open your heart. Have a blessed day, Paul. Your audience is the most lucky to stumble upon these videos. So there's two more comments here. This one's a long one. I really like that you share your physical aspects to from starting Heartfulness. There are things I weren't sure of that were because of Heartfulness or quite simply material realities that I was facing and unwilling to give up at the time. I'd gone through a very delicate or very dedicated Heartfulness practice, then basically gave it up and slowly have started to get back into it as my life flew so far off track. I was scared that I was never going to change. Several months later, I see it was transmission showing me the way. I will never forget the day during a cleaning that I felt as if my ego was snatched up out of my forehead as a sensation, a physical sensation that wasn't very pleasant, but it sure shut up my internal critic and poor choice center of my brain, and I've learned to give up what I needed to give up to move forward. It's not as if it is a one and done sort of thing either. On one hand, I'm glad that Heartfulness doesn't go around showcasing what happens on a physical and material level for people, but on the other hand, the stories sure are interesting. Your stories are, as they are the only ones I've really heard. Thanks, Paul. And so there's one final comment before the one I was looking for came in, and this person writes, until that happens, humanity's fucked. One of the best endings so far in the apocalypse. LMAFAO, laughing my ass off. I don't know why. Heartfulness is the only system that has helped me better myself. Taken a while, but I'm slowly chipping away at it. Cheers for these videos, bro. And there's all these other comments, I could go on for, I don't know, there's just a ton of them there. I didn't, I read the comments and I don't, it's hard for me to sort of catalog or, I get into the state where I just blow through them and they don't register to me. And so, but there's all these people that have experienced benefits of the Heartfulness system. because it works, right? It's not, maybe it doesn't work for everyone, or maybe everyone who does it can't perceive how it's working for them. The reason I don't share personal experiences so much with, sittings and things like this, or what I experienced, and, it was advised that people didn't talk to other people about what they experienced during like group meditation or a gathering, because some people didn't have as big an experience, or would be going through maybe the cleaning. Like sometimes you're going through a cleaning and someone else is completely blissed out, right, at a sitting, and you come out and you're irritated, and they come out and they're completely blissed out. I mean, my own experience, like I was feeling the transmission. I had this big experience when I first started that I talked about. But my brother, when he started, he didn't feel anything for, some period of time. And so that was a source of unpleasantness, right? And so he just kept with it, and he, liked what he read in terms of the philosophy. And he has, but his path and his experiences were different, especially initially. And so everyone has these, everyone has a personal experience with it. And like I said, there's cleaning and there's the, transmission. And sometimes it's the cleaning's rough and the transmission is blissful. For one person, it's, one thing, and for another, it's something else. But you can always pray for understanding. Like you can always pray for God to show you what you need to know about something when you're not sure if it's a part of the spiritual process. But everything is. Once you start doing the Heartfulness system and you're engaged with it, everything that you then do, everything you experience is a part of it. Like that's the difference between somebody actively doing the Heartfulness system or somebody just lurking, right? Somebody who's, connected to it without consciously knowing it, is that when you consciously know it, everything that you receive in your life at that point, when you start doing the Heartfulness system, once you commit to it, is part of that experience. Like you get on a roller coaster, and, and the Heartfulness system is a roller coaster, which is probably not a good metaphor but in a way it is, right? Because there's peaks and valleys and ups and downs and things. And once you're on it, like that's a part of the ride, right? And whether you think it's related or not, it certainly is. There's one more interesting thing I wanted to share about this. So when this French woman was given these messages from Babaji, now Daji Kamlesh Patel is now receiving these messages, but the third master of the Heartfulness system, Master Charji, who was like this perfect person and good at all things, and Babaji had told him he opened up his ability to intercommune, right? Because Babaji would, be like talking to himself. People would be sitting around Babaji, and he'd be having these conversations. They would see him, and he'd be talking to Lalaji or some other higher developed soul. And sometimes they would be getting individual or group sittings with Babaji. He would be sitting there smoking his hookah. He had this like this courtyard, right? This, you can see some of the pictures. I'll put a picture in there. Hopefully I'll remember to do that. Probably not. Well, I'll just put it at the end of this video, and hopefully you'll see it here. But there's this courtyard that was in the middle of this, this place in Shah Jahanpur. Shah Jahanpur was, Master Charji once said, I didn't think there was a worse place than Shah Jahanpur, but then I went to Fatehgarh, where Lalaji, the first master, was from. It was like, and I'm just grateful I'm in Chennai, right, in Madras, in Chennai, India, because, it's a lot better, big city and things. But these rural villages, and they weren't great places. Like these hippies that end up being called to, find Babaji in this remote village, right? There was the way that they found them would be considered miraculous. But they, many of them told me, I've talked to some of these, older practitioners, they told me about their train ride in, right? And these train rides in India, especially the rural trains, are a real experience. Like I love it, but they're not, sometimes the train could be like 8 hours late, right? And the train ride is like 14 hours. And they would come in as, Americans and Europeans. It's like you're coming into another world, especially in rural India. And they would get off at this remote train station stop. And there were a lot of like robbers in that area. They called them dacoits or something like that. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And they would come in and they would have to find Babaji's house. And they would just stumble in. This one guy was telling me the story, this American. He's kind of, he's a funny person. And he said, so I'm stumbling off the train. And he's like looking around for Babaji's house. And Babaji, the Danish people, there's a lot of people from Denmark. Like, it's a small country, but Babaji loved it. He traveled there a number of times. And there was all these Danish practitioners, and they were these big, like, Vikings. They're really sweet, nice people, but their ancestors were Vikings, right? And so most of them are blonde and they're tall, right? And he, looks over and there's like these 3 or 4 blonde supermodel-looking girls in the middle of like rural India. And he's like, oh, that must be Babaji's house, right? And so Babaji had this incredible courtyard. And like he would sit there was a chair that he'd sit in, he'd smoke his hookah, right? Hookah is like a water pipe, and they would pack it with charcoal and with tobacco and jaggery. And smoking's not recommended in the system, but Babaji was sort of his one attachment to the world. Like there was a series of talks called Hubble Bubble, where Master Charji reflected on things that he would be sitting there with Babaji, and Babaji would be smoking his hookah, and it was just this blissful experience. And you'd hear the bubbling, and the bubbling just made you feel good, right? Like I remember my brother my brother was always philosophical, and I lived with him for a period of time. And he would smoke cigars, right? He was a cigar smoker. And, my grandfather smoked a pipe as well, my favorite grandparent, a guy who fought in World War II. And I have positive association when I smell those things, right? I mean, cigars smell bad, but I always had a positive association with my brother smoking cigars, right? So these people would, they would hear the bubbling of the Hubble Bubble, the hookah, and he would, be transmitting and cleaning to people while they sat around him and, talking and teaching people or whatever it was, right? But anyways, there'd be times where he would be giving a sitting to the group of people in the courtyard, and he would be sitting on a chair, and then he would flop down on the floor, and he would, and the sitting would go on, and then he'd say after the sitting, Lalaji came and he gave the sitting. Like Lalaji, wanted to, would come in a disembodied soul form and come and give these sittings. So Babaji, they're now starting to publish all of Babaji's interactions with Lalaji and these other higher developed souls, because he was this medium, right? But Master Charji never was able to do this, and it bothered him a great deal because he was like good at everything else, right? And then this French woman came in, and she started to, deliver these messages, right? These channeled messages where she would intercommune with Babaji and other higher developed souls, and they're called the Whispers of the Brighter World. I've talked about this in past videos. There's, I don't know if the link is still in my description box, but you can sign up and they send a whisper a day, one of these messages every day, and there's, I think 20 to 30,000 of them. I mean, it's the biggest collection of any type of communication of this form. And so much, the Bible, much of the Bible, the New Testament was, channeled messages from Jesus to his disciples, right? Like much of the teaching, St. Paul never met Jesus, but his teachings were of this sort, right? And St. Paul was, Master Charji in a past life, so he had the capability to do this in that life, but not so much in this life, right? So I'm saying this because some of the messages that started to come through to this woman, this French woman who was, intercommuning with these, higher developed souls, came from this person that they called SE, spiritual entity, right? That was the name of the person, that it'd be signed SE. And then it was revealed later on, Master Charji was still alive at the time, that it was his spiritual essence, his spiritual entity, that was communicating with her, but he wasn't conscious of it. Like he wasn't mentally or egotistically conscious of saying these things to this woman, but his soul was communicating with her, which was, raised a whole bunch of questions, right? And so, like, he was reading these messages that were coming from his soul, and we were all reading them, which was really interesting. And so then he passed away And like, a day or two after he passed away, they sent out a message that he delivered to the medium. And he said that he was blown away, when he left his body and he returned to what's called the brighter world, by, things that he didn't even understand about the heartfulness system, how much bigger and better it was, and how much more evolved and more, universal Babaji was than he originally even knew. And he had been Babaji's disciple for years. And I mean, they had this connection, this divine connection. But with all the things that I've experienced and other people have experienced in the heartfulness system, and certainly Master Charji, I mean, he had these experiences he wrote in his diary that, like the time he was in eternity, like he was in this ocean of blue, right? And, when I read that he wasn't even aware of like a small portion of it, like even with all of his connection to the divine, to Babaji and the divine system through the heartfulness method, he was, blown away after he died. When he left his body, his soul, really saw it from a completely different perspective. And it's something that, has kept me hopeful, because what we see in the show, what I talk about the show here, is something that, it's tangible and it's material. And what we experience on a spiritual level is something else. And the heartfulness system works on a spiritual level, and much of the work goes undetected and is, not recognized. And people are, even if they experience a little bit, they only get a small part of it. And so, it's something that, I mean, I've been happy to think about because, there's another, there's a deeper level of understanding. And some of that deeper level, a small portion of it is presented here in these videos, but there's much deeper levels of of reality, going back to this idea of a distorted perception that as long as we're in a human body, we don't have access to. I talked about that time I was sick and I was going through this stressful thing, and I was fasting, and I read these whispers messages, and they took me to a whole different realm of understanding and consciousness. But then I had to come back to material reality. It's happened to me several times where I've, gone to a higher level, a deeper level of spiritual, reality, but then I have to go back and, live in the mundane materialistic world, and I lose it. Like I'm not, I gave the example of that book, Flowers for Algernon, where this, mentally impaired person is given this treatment, and, he becomes a genius, and he exceeds all these scientists that are studying him and his ability to perceive things. But he was, there's this mouse named Algernon that is given the same injection and becomes the world's smartest mouse. And then the mouse dies, and the guy goes back to, his mind mentally deteriorates, and he's, back to a low level of consciousness. But for a while, he was a genius. And so, I've had these type of experiences on a spiritual level with the heartfulness system. And it is, something that I can't really fully explain because I'm not feeling that way right now, right? But, the memory of it and the clarification and the validation of the system, is there at times for people who do it. It really, you have these experiences when you do it for years and years, and each person goes through their own specific path, but validation is definitely there for people who stick with it. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.